to an omni-channel approach. That means that you still use digital and analog channels, sorry, but these channels are much more intertwined with each other. So over all of your media channels, you create a kind of user experience or user journey across all devices and media. And when I visit some websites, especially the websites of the state forestry organizations in Germany, I see nothing of omnichannel. There are no links at all. There's no social media button. There are sometimes no videos embedded. There's no map. Where can you find the next forester? There are no games included, no apps recommended, just nothing. There's just a little bit of information and that's it. But that is not enough. You should really link every communication channel as much as you can, starting with links, shout-outs, and announcement, and going further to embedding everything you can. It's like a little bit like going through an online store, and when you take the mouse over the text, there's always something linked there. Experiences of the other users, what products have they bought, and so on. And that's, I think, we should adapt this kind of communication also in forestry. So when dealing with forest-related topics, publics must be able to switch from one medium to another as simply as if we are one. Let's talk a little bit about defining and describing target audiences. I think you all know that it is very, very important to know who is listening to you. So, of course, you have to define target audiences. The easiest way is to do it with stakeholder analysis. So now you know who your audiences are, but you do still not know how they are characterized, and this is also important. I recommend to do that with the persona method. I like this method very much. It's quite easy. Maybe some of you know about this method. For each target audience, you create a kind of example person. I did it with Marianne Magazine. She's a local resident near our plantations. She's retired already. And then you describe this example person, for instance, with age, with education or prior knowledge, with interests, and what is also very, very important, with media use. Which channels are suitable to reach this target audience? And in this case, it's quite clear that she will not visit our website. She will not be present on our social media channels. She will ask her friends, and she will maybe walk around with her dog, and then she will see our information panels at the plantation. So that's how we can address her. Know who your target audiences are and how they are defined or described, you can set up kind of multi-channel relational model. That just means that you now know which target audience can you address with which media channel and which contents are interesting for this group and which language should you use. I don't mean with language, is it English or German, which is also important, but I mean, is it a very easy or plain language, or is it a more scientific language? In Dendromas for Europe, I decided to more sort our multi-channel relational model due to the prior knowledge in the field of Dendromas, plantations, and so on. So the contents Dendromas for Europe was dealing with. And so for the general public and the consumers, where I expected that they will have a very low level of prior knowledge, we of course used our website, public press, social media. We produced these explainer videos or TV spots. But these kind of these media channels, and although how detailed the information is, the scope of information is not interesting anymore for scientists and reviewers like we have here in the third group. So for them, we need scientific publications, we need conferences, we need technical posters. And then you can, of course, put all this together, for example, on your website. It's like your ID card of forestry or project communication. And so we had some very basic information on our website for this group. We included the farmer section for this group. Here, farmers have been able to inform themselves about what soils are we looking for, what yields can we achieve, how much money can they earn. And of course, we had on our website the download section for this group, which included all our publications and the technical posters. For communication, of course, it is also very important to define a design style, to just make you visible and recognizable. So one of the first things you should do is setting up a corporate design, including logo, fonts, colors, templates, and also pictures for project partners that they can communicate on their own with good pictures. It's very important. And regarding the tone, the most important message I would like to send to you is that you always consider easy and plain language. When talking to the general public, they don't understand our scientific jargon. We as foresters use so many terms and words where we know what it is, but the people outside, they don't. And of course, you are sometimes entering a tightrope walk between scientific precision and complexity on the one hand and popularization on the other. So for instance, it was not always an easy decision if we would like to use plantations or short rotation coppices, because in Germany, plantations is perceived sometimes negatively. Plantations, that is what comes after the rainforest has been burned. So talking about plantations can be tricky, but if I talk about short rotation coppices, nobody will know what I'm talking about. So that's even worse. So I have to use plantations and explain that it's a little bit different in our case. Okay, you don't have to read that. I know that's impossible to read it. I just want to show you this picture because it's the most perfect summary of what you have to consider when you do communication and dissemination. This figure has been drafted by the Executive Agency for SMEs, so it's something out of the European Commission, and you can download it for free. I've also put the link here, and when you get the presentations, you can just click on this link. It really summarizes what I have talked about so far and includes some other really nice things. I just show you this picture that you remember when you see it. Ah, yeah, that's the right figure. Now I have it. I don't want to go into much into detail. So for the last minutes of my presentation, I would like to show you that there has been an evolution of science communication. When we started in 2017, we still, in reality, applied the deficit model. What does it mean? The public is seen as a passive mass whose knowledge deficit must be eliminated by intensive supply with information. So this is like in pedagogics, but 2 or 3, sometimes only 1 decade ago. So lots of us have stood in front of a class and just talked and talked and talked and talked, showed some slides, maybe ask the students something, but it was more to check if they understood correctly. It was not really to get into a dialogue. And we recognize this kind of teaching is not good. A lot of students are not learning what we want them to learn. And even if they learn, they will forget about it very, very soon. So we have changed our way of teaching. We are now more accompanying the students. We are providing information, we are providing material, and we help them to get into the topic on their own. So they can deal with the topic in their own speed and with their own prior knowledge. They can construct meaning of the material and information you give them. And this we should also adapt to forestry communication and science communication in general. So we are heading over to a dialogue or even to a participation model of communication. Communication is not only sending out information, and it's still not only asking the public, hey, what's your opinion? No, it's really discussing our both opinions. And I know for some of you it might be a little bit terrifying because sometimes discussion doesn't run in the direction you want, and sometimes a shitstorm occurs, but after the rain there will be light again. And we have to cope with that. So in the dialogue model, science communicators are prepared to engage in a dialogue with the public to help explain science, to listen to and consult the public about their perceptions, concerns and needs. And scientists acknowledge that the public may have useful knowledge that can help scientific progress and policy making. So it's not a dump math. It's worthful what they say to us. Yeah? Even in a shitstorm, there's a little bit of truth. And we should listen to that. So if it's possible, we should even go one step beyond to the participatory model, participation model. And here we really involve the public. The participatory model of science communication recognizes various public as being equal with scientists and policymakers in reflecting, sharing, and creating knowledge. This has been known as co-production. I know that's a bit scary because we shift power from science to public. But there are a lot of projects in citizen science, and they are really successful. They are collecting data, and they have good ideas, and we should use this knowledge of the general public. So the new philosophy would be of inform, involve, collaborate, and empower. And this is also what funders of the EU would like to hear if you write project proposals today, just as a little hint. Yeah, like you have developed in teaching, in pedagogics, we should also develop our communication in forestry and in project communication in the field of forestry. We should be visible, we should be connected, our channels should be connected, and we should involve the public. I know that this is not always possible. You cannot invite the general public to their genetic labs and say, hey, just do what you want. But there are a lot of situations and projects where you can really include them, invite them to participate. Some references. And now I hope to be a good communicator and discuss with you. Thanks.
Thank you we have still a few minutes for questions, maybe one or two questions. Okay, Robert, please.
How do you sell that knowledge and that best practices audience and also the people who are engineers and very confident?
Yeah, it's hard to sell. I think the best opportunity to sell it is to include these topics in a forestry education. So it is very important to train our students that they have these skills, at least a lot of them, that once they are an engineer, that they already know about it. So it is really important to include training communicative skills in higher forestry education.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sandra. We will still have. Oh, sorry.
Just to help you to communicate. Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Sandra. This was great. Almost like thank you for the communication masterclass. Through all the important things here, but just one question that is often forgotten and neglected. That all these things that don't come free. So when you have your project and you want to share the information about the results, you should think about the financial side in advance. Because this is a very important step here. Lots of people, lots of knowledge, lots of money, everything is needed. How did you solve this? When did you factor in the financial side of the communication aspect of the project? How did you allocate the resources for that to be able to do everything you wanted to do theoretically?
So the financial resources have been quite clear because the project has been funded by the EU, and so the resources have been defined by the project proposal. And of course the funding or the finances have not been too big, so there has been lots done by ourselves. So we produced some videos on ourselves. We created a website on ourselves, so we did not have to spend so much money for that. Yeah, just had to deal with the budget which was given. Is it answering your question?
Well, yes, but actually I was kind of trying to make you say that you should think about well in advance, because when you say we did it on our own, that means that it's a big investment in kind. You did that, it doesn't appear in the books, but the investment has been made, and it should be recognized well in advance. That if you start working this way, you need to be prepared for long nights, big bucks, whatever, because otherwise it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's exactly the truth. And of course, I'm always fighting for a bigger budget for communication when I write new project proposals. But unfortunately, communication is still the first thing where people just take the red pen and say, it's not so important.
Okay, thank you very much. We have to move to the next. Just one sentence about the project. I think we really did use also the enthusiasm of all the participants. That was, of course, not monetarized, not written in before in the project proposal. There was, of course, some obligatory dissemination part, but still the enthusiasm of all the participants did contribute to make it a success. Of course, a project like this shouldn't stop at the termination date. There are still activities all along. I mean, one important thing was, for example, working together with IKEA. Everybody knows IKEA. Everybody is a bit enthusiastic about IKEA, about the products. So it's quite a brand which which has a positive name in the world. And I mean, for example, this was also an opportunity. We were proud to tell, we are working for IKEA, that we were establishing more than 1,200 hectares of such plantations. So, I mean, this is also an important thing, beside, of course, the material background. Okay, and now we get to our next presenter, Anne Austen, from the Chair of Forest Policy and Forest Resource Economics from the TU Dresden. I just used our friend Google to find some information about her, and I see that her professional background is not only forestry, but also sociology and social media. And one interesting book chapter which she was presenting has the title Between Auditorium and Felling the Trees, How and Why We Do Study Forestry. I mean, it's quite interesting. We do see that her profession is ensuring opening for us simple foresters new windows, and I ask Anne to give her presentation, please. Oh, sorry. But this speed works. Yes. It's great.
Yeah, that's the right one.
I don't know. Maybe you can change the pages.
Okay, so I have to. Just a second. Okay. Do you see enough? Is that okay? Okay. Well, we will see. Yes. Like this. Okay. Hello, good morning. Sorry for the delay. Is this? Okay, good. Hello again. I'm happy to introduce you to one of our research projects called RICA. Pronounced, it is Forestry Risk and Crisis Communication as well as Acceptance Building with regard to plant protection measures in forests. Quite an unpopular theme in forestry. I'm sure I don't need to introduce you to the head of the project, which is Professor Dr. Norbert Weber. Thanks for the nice introduction for myself. And my colleague Verena Arndt is not here, but together we are working on this little project in Tharandt, which is next to Dresden and next to the beautiful Tharandter Wald, Tharandt Forest. So what's the project about? It's about everybody's darling. For centuries, forests have been an integral part of our culture, so inspiring countless works of literature and art. Think of the Grimm's fairy tales or all of the stories and works of art with the forest as scenery or backdrop. It's Robin Hood. And it continues in the modern age as well as in our everyday lives. In any case, the forest, or we have long associated the forests with beautiful things permanently. But however, in recent years, as we all know, the state of our forests became a cause for concerns. So droughts, bark beetle infestations, storms, forest fires, I don't need to tell you all of the tolls which have taken on our forests. And as a result, people proposed numerous ideas and theories about how to save the forest. And some of the ideas have suggested that the best way to save it is to ban forestry altogether and leave the forest untouched. I don't know whether it's just a German thing or not, but I'm quite sure in every country there are ideas like this about how to save the forest. So in Germany as well, the forestry or forest management is in a crisis of legitimacy, so due to concerns about its impact on its environment. So we see there will not always be light. There will not always be easy times, especially when it comes into the future, which there will be more climate change issues as well. So one important question is, what story do we want to tell, especially when it comes to continuing forest management or implementing forest protection measures, which we will really need in the climate future. So, as you know, there are many tools for forest protection measures, like hunting or sanitation cuts, or plant protection measures like polter spraying, and many more. So, and you also know that none of these themes is particularly appealing, or nor have they a good reputation in the society. Moreover, they are very complex to apply, and only a few people can do it. And from the outside, the actions often raise many questions, but often there is nobody to answer these questions. So should we consider to keep quiet about it, or is there any other way? And in our research project, RICA, we investigated exactly these questions. Should we keep quiet about it, or should we tell our own story? So RICA, pronounced, as I told you, means forestry risk and crisis communication. So, as well as acceptance building. And we use the example of pesticide discharge, which is quite a conflict theme. I'm here because the aim of this research project is to provide forestry stakeholders with legitimacy to act, so that they can make decisions that do not meet with radical rejection or even resistance, but are supported by society as well as by science and politics, of course. I've briefly summarized our research process here, just briefly. First, we researched how many plant protection measures were actually applied in our studied area in Germany. It's the eastern part of Germany. For the same period, we also looked at the media discourse, whether anything was reported about these plant protection measures, and also how exactly the media reported about it. We also wanted to find out about the level of public knowledge about plant protection measures, and we conducted a little online survey for this. And next, we spoke to people who had been involved in an escalating situation and had a little case study for this. We will take a closer look at this in a moment. And using the findings of these previous work packages, we then conducted a small Delphi study. I don't know, yeah, I'm sure you know what a Delphi study is. It's with some experts for communication and experts for plant protection measures and so on. We interviewed them in different cases. And yes, at the end, we also had a small exemplary educational campaign about some plant protection measures, which I will show you at the end if we have some time. Yes, so in the following, I just want to present you a few of the most important results. The first work package can be summarized quite quickly. Compared to agriculture and to fruit farming or orchards, just very few pesticides are used in forest in Germany, and I'm sure in other countries as well. But we also found out that currently there is no functioning supervisory board that really controls the pesticide application in private and state forests. So maybe this has to be improved. At the same time, it became clear that in the course of the last few years, more and more pesticides have lost their approval as well. But it is mostly because it is no longer profitable to sell them because nobody seems to use it. So indirectly, we know there's really just a few pesticide applications in forests. So in our online survey, we asked, among other things, how satisfied people are with the forestry public relation. Does it make them feel informed? Is it designed transparently enough? Do they believe that all relevant issues are addressed? And as you can see, only 1 out of 5 is really satisfied with the public relation of the forestry sector, so there's still a lot to do. And by looking at our collection of media reports, sorry, I don't think you can read it now, we determined about four risk factors which were mentioned very often in the media discourse. They are really repeatedly mentioned by the opponents of the plant protection measures. These are health risks. They are, and down there you see some citations out of the media discourse. Maybe you can read it later on. There were some environmental risks, of course, and also the presence or non-presence of communication and the lack of communication. We will see this in the case study later on. And also on discord and forestry stakeholders, which seems to be quite a big problem when it's time for plant protection measures in the forest. And we can, just a second. Furthermore, in the media discourse, it became very clearly that the distribution of speaking actors was also very clear. We found out that just in 4 out of 5 media reports, forest actors were speaking. So, oh, sorry, that was the wrong sentence. Just in 4 out of 5 media reports, forest actors weren't speaking at all. So, other case around, okay? Okay. So the field of communication about PPM, plant protection measures, was almost completely occupied by the opponents of plant protection measures in forestry or forest management in general. So our little case story showed the importance of a well-thought public relation and risk communication. It became very clear in Brandenburg. Brandenburg is a state in the eastern part of Germany. And there a really big crisis situation occurred. After many monitorings, the forestry office decided to take action against the insect pests Limantria monache. As a last resort, the aerial dispersal was ordered because the infestation was so bad already. But this decision of aerial dispersion of plant protection was only made public by chance, and became viral quite quickly. The local residents of the forest area called a residents meeting, and as you can see, there were really quite a lot of people. And on the right side, in the corner, you see the foresters. They had to answer a lot of questions, but let's say it doesn't change the attitude of the residents at last. And a short time later, protest broke out, a petition was set up, which reached more than 100,000 supporters, so quite many people. Soon they were also supported by environmental NGOs, and there was even a lawsuit and many protests, as I told you. So on the plant day of measurement, the foresters had to be escorted with police and police protection, and in the end, the plant protection measure couldn't be carried out. So it's all for nothing, but quite a big protest. And all in all, this is really a great representative of what goes wrong in forestry public relation. So we also looked at the escalation level. I don't know if you are familiar with this, but the aim should be to never escalate more than in level 1 or 2. And this case study, we took it to level 6, so it's quite a big crisis. So in summary, there were hard-on fronts, the topic became emotionally charged, and the foresters absolutely were overrun by the crisis because they were never taught about how to react properly to a dynamic forest, fast-spreading crisis situation like that. And with the so-called hot conflict type, we called the protests hot conflict type and the defending conflict type of the foresters cold conflict type. So the general problem is obviously the big information vacuum, the lack of a communication channel. It was too late, it was too little information, and there was no transparency. So all in all, no own storytelling. And because of that, others took the part of storytelling and took their own narrative over this situation. And maybe you are familiar with this situation as well. So the general approach, these approaches are quite familiar, but I think it's good in this project that we concentrated all these approaches on this case study and summarized it. So involve the society in all important issues at an early stage, and to serve the recently growing forest interest sufficiently, and use the demands of co-determination, which is currently appealing in the society, and involve them in the everyday work business of your forestry. For example, with the tree planting action, as you can see here. And don't hesitate to talk about all the varieties of forest management, even the parts which are harder to assume or to understand by the society. So it's quite, it's not the easy way, but it's the better way to tell your own story before others do it. In our research project, we also had the opportunity to make a little campaign, and we created the campaign in which we inform and clarify and show some forest protection measurements. So we made different channels for this, and we targeted different target groups. For example, we created a little website and some social media campaigns, and we also made a little tramway video for the city of Dresden and for Leipzig and other cities in Saxony and Brandenburg. So maybe next time when there's the opportunity for you, you could use some of our little campaign. We also translated it in English. Yes, all in all, there are some more examples. Sandra talked about it. Clearly, it costs some money, but I think it's worth it to tell your own story. So thank you very much. That's it. If there are some questions. Thank you.
May I start with a question? We have seen this application. It's already done partly, I think. Is there a possibility in such cases to do a follow-up, for example, showing 3-4 years later that those parts where the foresters did actually do the spraying survived and the other parts not? Or yeah. I mean, this is also a possibility. This comes back to the presentation of Sandra. She said you must be always in presence. You have to repeat your messages. You have to keep the level of awareness at the minimum level at least. And you have to act, not to react, not to be forced to react. That's quite important. Exactly. So did I understand your Chambe messages told about the success of this spraying, or what was the message?
Not in this case, because the spraying couldn't be done, but the forest survived. So even if this was the ultima ratio, you don't know, you can't see the future. And in this case, the forest was resilient enough to overcome this pest infestation. But of course, you should tell all of the stories. So even maybe even this should be told by the forests management itself instead of the NGOs, and instead of one of the forest owner, which was a big opponent of this spraying action. He was very active in telling the story and in telling all the risks which are conquered or can't be conquered. And yeah, the problem is the dynamic of the media, because the outcome of a spraying like this, or the outcome of a forest which faces a risk like a pest infestation, it's quite a long time which you have to tell about it. And in the media, it's just a short moment for this. So maybe that's also a big problem. You also, you really have to take on this dynamic of the media, you know? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Questions? Yes.
You talked about the fact that, in this case, the forest could have been resilient, but I guess the most important part is how can we ensure and then communicate in the right way, because then it creates different scenarios, and I guess that's the problem. What people don't really understand, and okay, they just do it because they don't know, when actually it's not the case. Maybe sometimes it's possible to go on the itself. Is there ways to maybe highlight that and make it more apparent?
I think your question was, should we also make the decision for make such a big action like plant protection measure via helicopter more transparent to all the people? Of course we should. And at the moment, it isn't at all transparent enough. If you studied higher forest education, you know the ultima ratio is just the outcome of a very long way of decisions and a very long way of monitoring over a long time period. And then you have to make this ultima ratio the last resort. And nobody knows this, I think. Okay.
I just would like to comment on this. Of course, it is very important to also address uncertainty in our communication. Of course, we don't know what the outcomes are, and our ecosystems are so complex that there is always a little bit of uncertainty. But we should communicate very transparent about that, because then we create trust, and trust is a very important first step that people still believe you. So addressing uncertainty is also an important field of content in forestry communication.
Yeah, I think it's like one thing that's always useful to understand is being able to visualize scenarios. In this case, they're okay, there is 3 types of scenarios. Either we do nothing, in the worst case, this can come back, or we do something and get saved that if people are facing those 2 scenarios, they're okay, I understand why this decision was made, because due to the uncertainty, the maximal loss was too high. And I think that helps a lot to actually be able to know, okay, there is those 2 types of scenarios, and now I understand why people make this decision, because I see what was the risk of what they buy.
I see your comment and your argument, but I think the big problem, we are not the first ones who have this idea to just explain enough, but the big problem it is so complex, and it's not quite assuming, and I think that's a big problem in the forest management public relation, that it's mostly quite complex to explain. And the other stories of the opponents, for example, the stories are quite simply. If you say no to these measures, So the forest will be resilient enough and will be quite thriving. So that's a simple story, that's a sexy story, so it's better to hear this.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to come back to your comments. I will have my presentation later in the afternoon, and I'm working on forest conflicts or land use conflicts, and of course the most important thing is to generate trust. We always want people to trust us because we are the forest experts. And if you ask yourself when you trust somebody, it is usually when the people are honest, when the people give you enough information to make a decision on yourself, and so that's exactly the point, to show the people the scenarios, what can happen, and then you empower the people to see, okay, we want that, or we do not want that. So I think to argue the complexity is only to talk to the other people.
Okay.
I mean, we have to live with one thing. We have seen in the beginning of your presentation, forests are a sacred place. You know, we have begun with all these fairy tales linked to the forest. Nobody tells a tale about an autumn wheat field. We have seen some indication for cornfield because it's a bit more mysterious if it's high enough, but forest is a sacred place. And even if farmers use huge amounts of chemicals each year, it looks even good. Huge machines are rolling all over the fields and spraying all over. Oh, that looks beautiful. Nobody argues. But if you use it in the forest, suddenly you are lost. And I think it's important to act, to make the people, to make it clear that we are the professionals and they have to trust us. But we should act and not the others. We shouldn't lose this grip on the whole activity. So we should act, not the others, and we should tell them why do we certain measures. So coming back to this.
Yeah. I just come back to that. You're absolutely right. Of course, we should be the active part in the communication, but there's a lot of protest against all these herbicides and pesticides in agriculture as well. At least in Germany, we need or the farmers, they experience criticism of the media.
This
so
will reach us too.
Okay. In some parts, it's even worse.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I don't see hands raised now. Thank you very much. So we can move to the next presenter, Professor Ignacio Javier Díaz Maroto from the University of Santiago de Compostela, from the Department of Agroforestry and Engineering. Mr. Maroto is operating in the exciting field of agroforestry engineering within the research group Modeling, Energy and Mechanization of Biosystems. Title of his presentation is Higher Education, Globalization, E-Learning and Information and Communication Technologies. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
This is with us.
Without us.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ignacio Díaz Maroto. I am professor at the University of Santiago de Compostela in Spain, in Galicia, in the northwest of Spain. Santiago de Compostela University is the second university traditional in Spain. It's an important university, but now there are two different campuses. The main campus is Santiago, Santiago is very famous for the way to Santiago, for the peregrination, okay? And the another campus is campus of Lugo, is my campus. Lugus is a specialty campus because there are the titulation relationship with the terra, with the rural world. For example, forestry engineering, agriculture engineering, veterinary, and now there are new titulation, for example, degree in landscape, and the last is robotics. In robotics, for example, there are some matter with application in agriculture and also in forestry, okay? Then first, thank you so much to the organizing committee for the opportunity to present here this communication, and also for the university, for the Faculty of Forestry and the University of Sopron for the organization of this event, okay? My communication is higher education globalization, e-learning, and information and communication technologies. This, no? Okay. The index is similar to research paper, introduction, objective, material and method, result and discussion, and conclusion. This is the session 2. And this is the title of the communication, higher education globalization, e-learning and information and communication technology. There is an example of the different application of these technologies in the forest. It's an important project of the European Forest Institute, the Nomadic project. It's about the green growth for the North Karelian in Finland, bioeconomy through digital transformation of forest design. No? Here is an example of the importance of the application of this technology directly in the forest services. I think that now, at this moment, an important pillar, a vital pillar for reaching the sustainable forest management is forestry education and also training, okay? There is a social demand on forest and also pressure on forest education continue to increase. Also, forestry education should keep pace by this question, okay? The problem is this forestry education is adapted now to the new social and economic condition, to the globalization. I think that there is a lot of problem, a lot of doubt arise about it, okay? Because some concerns, some question has even said in several international forums similar to this about the fact presented forestry education is deficient, okay? It's not my opinion, it's an opinion, general opinion, okay? And I think to improve contribution of forest to the achievement of sustainable development goal, for example, 4, 10, and 16, forest, peaceable and inclusive society, reduce inequality, education and inclusive institution at all levels is an important opportunity for this question. Here is the role of the forest in the sustainable development goal. The current situation of the state of the forestry education and training, the question is what solution will be feasible to solve this problem? I think that without well-trained forest manager and also policies maker, it will be impossible to maximize the contribution of forests to sustainable development. Okay? And another question is the future of the forest depend on to attract different students, but brilliant students to forestry program and provide them with the necessary knowledge and skill. Okay, this is my opinion. I remember when I started my studies of forestry engineering in Madrid. Is the only school of forestry engineering in Spain was in Madrid in the 1982. Okay, now in Spain there are 50 forestry schools. 50. Okay, this is, I think this is an important question, okay? And this is an important problem. And why is this situation, this problem? The problem is with the administration structure of the state in Spain. In Spain, you know, the administration is by autonomous community, okay? And there is the state and there is the autonomous community, and all autonomous community one forestry education or agriculture education or other. Okay, there is an important problem. Here is an figure about an important program of the UNESCO call to action on forest education. Okay. An objective, this research or research is based on the acquisition, of knowledge for the sustainable use of the new method and technique of digital innovation, learning access to information and communication. I think that this is a basic tool to support university teaching now, okay? The main objective is to promote a debate analyzing the remarkable advantage of such technology and their possible shortcoming within the university system. Here is an example. Sorry. In this figure, this is the challenge of the introducing technology into the forest sector. This is an important company, Forestry General Management at the Exxon Agriculture Division. Then I think that the future is this question, no? The introduction of the technology in the forestry sector and also in the forestry education. Material and method. Digitalization to the information of forestry education is essential, as well as complementary effort to increase the profile of forestry profession in the curricula and in the community, and very important to improve awareness, knowledge of forest and forest-related jobs. Okay. Developing continuing education and informal training opportunities for forest professionals, members of forest community, private forest owners, and the private and public sector is also significant. For example, in Galicia, there are about 2 million of hectares of the forest. The surface of the forest in Galicia is very important. This forest are normally private forests, not public forests, private forests. Then I think that is necessary the formation of the people that work in the forest, and because it's essential for the sustainable forest management, okay? Here is an example. Galicia is not only eucalyptus and Pinus radiata. There is very important the native forest. The surface occupied by eucalyptus and Pinus radiata is similar to the surface occupied by native forest, by Atlantic forest. Okay? This, for example, an important forest in the oriental area of Galicia, near to the Asturias and León, in the mountain of the Ancares. Okay? Normally, the typical forest is the Quercus forest, Quercus robur and Quercus petraea, Fagus sylvatica, and other species. In the current, in the present educational system, higher education institutions have undergone considerable change. For example, adapted to the new method and practice from conventional state. Second, increasing demand from students to reach the essential scale to continuous learning, okay? Three, knowledge exchange, creating different opportunities for new market and competencies. And finally, new teaching format network whose method are recognized by the interconnection. Here is an example about an override of knowledge management as his component, okay? This is another picture, another image about the professional forestry and the different practice areas. This is very, very small, but this is the different matter now more important for this profession, okay? And for the different application, for example, by drone, by robotics, by another techniques, application directly to the forest. Here is, for example, an inventory with the last techniques for the forest. I remember in the past when we need to do an inventory in the forest, is necessary the caliper, the Blumelize, the Sunto, and the different tool for the inventory. Now, no. With normally only one skill, for example, reloscopio bitterlit, also now is the, I don't remember the name, is laser. What's it the name? Scanning, similar to scanning. With an scanning, it is only necessary one instrument for solve the inventory of the forest. It's not any problem, okay? Then it's fantastic. As in some occasion, the people know walking for the forest. Directly in the office with the different IMAS for the satellite, for the different auction, and the people know walking for the forest, okay? I think that this is an important problem. It's necessary use the new technology for the satellite IMAS, but it's necessary also improve this information working for the forest, okay? And result and discussion, all this chain were reached thanks to advance in the information and communication technologies, okay? As well as new technology and training model based on digital innovation. Globalization society, importance of e-learning to raise prosperity and quality of life, and also easy of access and communication and sharing of knowledge and information. Higher forestry education has not been immune to this change, and a continued adaptation to globalization has taken place. This is different image of the forest, of the native forest in Galicia, no? In Galicia there is an important population of the Canis lupus, also to the bear, to the brown bear, and this is a picture of the natural forest in Galicia, okay? And finally, the conclusion is first, higher forestry education has not been safe to this change, and I think there has been a continued adaptation to the globalization, okay? It's similar to the rest of the society. The second, this work is based on the acquisition of knowledge for the proper use of new methods and techniques of digital innovation, learning, and access to information, basic tools, and to support university teaching. Three, the aim is to promote a debate analyzing the remarkable advantage of these technologies and also their possible shortcomings within our university system. In the current society, network of people are contact network to development cooperative learning with different new ideas, perspectives, culture, and also information and communication, okay? And finally, in many cases, learning networks are used as a supplement to classroom course, okay? As an environment for teaching a full course or a part of this course. As well as forum to communication, knowledge, participation in information group or exchange with other colleagues and experts in the field for access to new resources. Okay, thank you for your attention. If you have any question, any problem. Thank you.
Questions? Okay.
I do have one question regarding the different schools, and then how basically new method of immersion should be used to reach sustainable forest management. But I mean, being external and not directly involved in the forestry sectors, I think it's like quite difficult to understand what the level of sustainable management means for different countries and different regions, and like what also does it mean when you want educational skills to you want to get a sort of like standardized level of saying, okay, that's what we want to achieve, but then what the practice and method you would have to implement will be different in terms of regions and countries. And yeah, how do you kind of see this issue of like getting sort of like the efficiency of like standardization, but still having like preciseness and like of the tailor-made approach of the educational system?
Okay. I think that the aim of the sustainable forest management is the same for all countries, okay? But the difference is the use of this forest, okay? For example, as I commented yesterday, in Spain, there are different regions, different autonomous communities, for example, Galicia and the north of Spain. In this region, the forests are very important for the production, okay? But in the rest of the Spain, the forest is impossible the use for production because it's a Mediterranean area and the use of this forest is only for conservation or protection. But it is possible also the aim to reach sustainable forest management in this forest, okay? I think that the question is my opinion is today the main important is to do sustainable forest management, but it is indifferent to the use of the forest, also in forest production and also in forest conservation. And also is fundamental the forest certification, okay? Do you understand my question? Then it's necessary that all countries support the sustainable forest management and also the forest certification. For example, in Galicia, there are a lot of surface of the eucalyptus and to Pinus radiata for afforestation, but these surface are forests with certification. And this is a question very, very important. Okay? I don't know if I answered you.
The point was more like, and I think you perfectly mentioned it, like for example the certification side. You know, I think the European level, the goal is that okay, let's try to find one certification system. That's the way we should certify sustainable development, but that doesn't work. Like, it has to be different in each places.
No, I think no different. The important is to go to the forest certification. There are different systems for forest certification, PEF or FCC or another system. But I think the question is that the people, the property of the forest is necessary that that these forests are with an certification, okay? This is the question. Thank you.
Yeah, any other questions? Okay, maybe then later during the follow-up this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. And now I'm happy to announce that our first presenter, okay, you have to change settings. Thanks. Our first presenter, Mr. Gergely Lomnici, did arrive in the meanwhile. Mr. Lomnici comes from the Indigo Communications Limited company. He first studied humanities and then changed to forestry. And of course, these skills allowed him to work as a spokesperson for the state-owned Pilisi Parkerdő Forest Limited company, which is located around Budapest. You can imagine 2 million people reaching there, these forests. An active communication was, of course, important there. He worked there for more than a decade and a half, and now he is currently a senior advisor at the Ministry of Agriculture. The company which he is representing, Indigo Communications, is not only an important partner of the Ministry of Agriculture, but is also a contracted partner of our university. and they have been helping out us with communication, active communication, for the last few years. Please, Gergő, give your presentation and be prepared for you a seat.
Ja,
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I apologize for everyone for this delay, but in all night I was fighting against the stomach flu and I lost the battle in the morning. But no, you are in safe because I have beautiful gloves, so no viruses, no nothing problem. So my name is Gergely Lomnici, and thank you for Mr. Dean this beautiful introduction. I am a forest engineer, but I graduated, of course, from the University of Sopron 20 years ago. But I am a communication expert too. As Mr. Dean mentioned, I worked 15 years for the State Forestry Company as a spokesperson, and 6 years for the biggest NGO of the forestry experts in Hungary as a general director. This is a Hungarian Forestry Association. Currently, I have a consulting company, and we are working, for example, for several forestry companies, for the Ministry of Agriculture, and of course for the university. So I think I have a long history, maybe 20 years old history, 20 years long history in the field of the forestry communication. Unfortunately, English is not my strongest foreign language, but I hope I can, I try my best, and I hope I can tell you a short story about the changes in the communication of the forestry sector in Hungary. I am not a professor, not a researcher, but I strongly believe that my own experience might be interesting for you. Briefly, I have 3 different parts in my presentation. First of all, a short overview about the forestry in Hungary, because we have to know the topic of the communication. After that, I present the changes that I have experienced and which I call a paradigm shift. In the third part of the presentation, I'm going to highlight some aspects of the reasons of the changes. So let's begin with a few facts about Hungarian forests. I don't know, is it a repeating or no? So if we want to understand the trend of communication, we need to know the situation of the forests and the relationship between the population and the forests. Hungary is an agricultural country, but still 25.4% of its territory is covered by trees. This is the green areas. 22% of this is forest. Half of these forests have been planted in the last 100 years. The forest produces every year approximately 30 million cubic meters of wood, of which 7-8 million cubic meters are cut down every year. In Hungary, there are 9.6 million inhabitants, and 3 million people live directly in the capital and the surroundings. 54% of the forests is owned by state. It is more than 1 million hectares. State forests are managed by 21 state forestry companies. And we estimate that 40-50 million people visit these state forests each year. The private sector in forestry is very young and not very well developed, because after the communism, people got back their property, but it was just 30 years ago. Currently, the share of private forests is 46%, and it has around 500,000 owners. It's very lot. After this short introduction of the numbers and data, let's turn now to the changes of communication in the last 20 years. My experience is that the content and the tone of the forestry communication have completely changed in the last 2 decades. The focus shifted from production to ecosystem services. As an illustration, I'm going to tell you a few examples of communication of the Pilis Park Forestry Company. This is a state forestry company and manages 65,000 hectares of forests around Budapest, where is this 3 million people live. Probably this is the reason why this company is the most developed communicator in this sector. In 2003, when I started working, the introduction of the forestry companies began with industrial data. How many cubic meters they cut, how many tons of paper would they produce, or even how much game they hunt. The first picture, this, is from the news of the Hungarian television in the 70s, which said, the news said, that a forestry company produced 30,000 cubic meters of quality wood. So beautiful. Although this picture is a little bit earlier, but the same trend continued until the first decade of the 21st century. In contrast, the current introduction of the Pilis Park Forestry Company begins with this sentence: the task of the foresters is to manage the ecosystem around the capital. In the contents of the communication, other benefits of the forest appear as well, especially tourism and recreation, but sustainability, cultural values, climate change mitigating effects, or circular economy are also present in communication. A good example of this change is the managing of the rules of visiting forests. For example, it is a big question every year how we can moderate the period of the roaring of the stags. Every autumn, the deer stags make a loud sound to call the females and frighten the other stags. It is an interesting thing, like a concert in the beautiful forest. So every evening, a lot of people go to the forest to hear this roaring. But hunting is impossible if there are hundreds of their hiking routes. It is a nightmare for a company that needs income from hunting. Even 10 years ago, the forestry companies tried to ban the visiting of forests after the sunset. Their messages became kinder and kinder, but at the end, they were still bans. Excuse me about the quality of this picture, but hopefully you can catch the message of this ban. Everything is red, everything is forbidden. But the Pilis Park Forestry Company changed the situation 10 years ago. A little bit cheated because it is an image from the other company. They started organizing guided tours to hear the roaring of the stags. And it was a great success. Nowadays, every date of the tours fills up quickly. The company earns some money, and the foresters can lead the public to places without problem, so hunting is easier. And the greatest benefit is in the communication, because the forester became a leader, a friendly person, the source of the knowledge, instead of an opponent. The initiative has been so successful that last year already 10 of 21 companies organized a tour like this. The second example is the communication of a logging in the suburban area. In the village of Pomaz, which is near to Budapest, the capital. So in Pomaz, next to the houses, there are an old hybrid poplar forest, 12 hectares, 45 years old, many wind damages. We know So although the Pirish Park Forestry Company is a pathfinder in the close to nature forest management in Hungary, but in this case, there is no other way than clear cutting and planting a new forest from native species. We know it, professionals know, but every cutting is problematic near the interior area of municipalities. 20 years ago, the forestry company did the work by force in situations like this. Some simple sign with a ban, even security guards and police, and a lot of chainsaw for fast work. But currently, the situation was handled completely differently. Before the beginning of the cutting, the company organized a public forum together with the municipality, made a video with mayor, and the main message was the new planting, not the cutting. The result was the calm work and the cooperation with the municipality and the local and green NGOs. The company could cut all of these trees, but no one objected. It is other interesting thing that the local representative belongs to the Green Party. And on his Facebook page, there are around 25 posts until October, until this beginning of the cooperation. And half of them tells about this cooperation, and all have a positive tone. So this is the biggest success of the new way of the communication. What does it mean for the education? In practice, for all this change, we need proper knowledge. And this is the rule of education, the rule of universities. Foresters and forest engineers need knowledge about sustainability, about ecosystem services, about carbon capture, even the history of the local forests. Like in the picture, in public eye, we can be effective industrial experts or people who know more than others about the wonders of the nature. Without new content in the education, foresters don't have enough knowledge about the new topics. Nothing will change in communication if universities teach in the old way. If nothing changes in the name of the subjects and institutes. If the content of education tells us just how we can produce more and more wood and game. In the universities, we can teach what to say. This is the first step. And after that, how to say. First, the students have to learn the new set of arguments, new facts about forest as an ecosystem. In the Pirish Park Forestry Company, this paradigm shift works because there are professionals who are engaged in the close to nature forest management, and they train their own colleagues. In my generation, this knowledge doesn't come from the school, but everyone learns it on their own in the practice. Fortunately, the renewal process began here in Sopron too. And with this presentation, I would like to support these efforts because we need more and more professionals who can speak the language of the 21st century. So, still I have a little time. Let's turn on quickly to the reason of the paradigm shift. Everybody knows this figure about the process of communication. And if we are to understand the need of change, we have to look at changes in the different actors, the senders, the channels, receivers, and so on. So, just a few aspects of each actors. The sender. The main actors on the sender side in the communication are in Hungary, are the 21 state forestry companies. They manage the best known hiking places and protected areas, and they have resources for the change and for the communication. The other actors, for example, the ministry, the private owners, or even the university, currently are not very invisible in the public eye. In addition, an important change took place for state forest companies in 2014. The companies came under direct control of the Ministry of Agriculture. Earlier, other government institutions managed the state forestry sector, but about 10 years ago, politics came more directly to the state forestry. Don't take this fact in the wrong sense, because now we speak just about the forestry policy. And in this mind, the presence of the ministry, the strong will in the center, is an initiative for change, because politicians support the development of tourism, the nature conservation, and they give clear goals in carbon capturing. For example, a tourism program has been launched with the renovation and construction of 150 lookouts, accommodation facilities, forest schools, and ecotourism centers. Every year, 40-50 handover ceremonies are organized. As a result, the companies learn the language of the tourism, and a third or a half of the forestry news are about tourism. Politicians understand better the public needs than foresters, and they slowly, softly or hardly, force the state forest management to new directions. But this is just one of the aspects. Another reason for the change was the need for wood. In the forestry unit of Budapest, couldn't cut enough tree because of public opposition. The Pilis Park Forestry Company find a new way in the close to nature forest management and the new communication. And now the same trend appears first in the suburban area, after that in countryside, in the whole country. What changed in the channels? Everybody knows the changes in channels, but I tell my story. When I started my work, as a spokesman, we focused on newspapers and made contacts with journalists. 20 years ago, 3 companies of the 21 forestry company didn't have any homepage 20 years ago. Today, the 21 companies have together about 50 different social media channels with 400,000 followers. The 2 biggest channels belong to the Pilis Park Forestry Company, currently with 47,000 and 32,000 followers. This is a big change. The content we use has also changed. Images and videos dominate instead of well-written text. My presentation is a good example for a bad communication. It's an old school one, a lot of text, bad quality pictures, no videos, no moving, but I focus the language, so forgive me. Also, the speed of communication is much faster than 20 years ago, which means that the speaker doesn't have time to prepare for the answer. So if forest professionals are not able to speak freely about the different ecosystem services, they have lost the match. And finally, a few words about the receivers, about the public. The main process, it's well known in the whole world, is the urbanization. 70% of the inhabitants of Hungary live in cities, and they have zero knowledge of the forest. In 2017, the Hungarian Forestry Association made a research, and the surprising result was that Hungarian people think that the country's forest area has recently halved. In reality, the forest area has doubled in 100 years. So the public knows very little about forests, but they are still interested. Every year we estimated 40-50 million visitors in the state forests. They ask for information not only on tourism, but also on forest management. It is a big opportunity for the forestry sector. We have seen from the example of guided tours that the forester can be a positive actor in this process. But it is also a big responsibility. If we don't know the answer, or we are not ready for conversation, not able to use the channels, then other organizations, for example, the green NGOs, will fit this gap very quickly, and the messages of forestry sector disappear. So finally, let me conclude very briefly with the main points of my presentation. First of all, in 20 years, I realized a paradigm shift in the communication of forestry sector in Hungary. The focus of the message has shifted from production to ecosystem services. This process started in the state forestry companies, especially in the Pilis Park Forestry Company, which manages the forest in Budapest and its surroundings. This paradigm shift is both an opportunity and a responsibility for the forestry sector. And forestry professionals, and this is an important thing, need to acquire expertise in new areas. To communicate, they need to learn much more about ecosystem services, climate change, tourism, and biodiversity. In other words, universities need to teach firstly what to communicate, and secondly, how to communicate. So, thank you for your attention. I hope that I have given you an insight into the state of forest sector communication in Hungary, and please feel free to ask now or in the coffee break if I am alive until this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think wearing these gloves by Gergő is quite a symbolic thing. He has always his finger on the vein of forestry. When anything important happens in Hungary, he and his company is present. And let me tell you a short story. That was at least 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. Once I was just listening to one of the radios, which is a countrywide broadcasting radio, and he was giving an interview, and I had the feeling, okay, I have to call him or report him. I think I wrote you an email that time. At that time, it's such a superb thing to hear a calm and professional reporting about what's happening in forests. And I think listening to his presentation, you can understand why the leaders of our university found it so important to work together with this company. And I think it's quite a challenge for us. We didn't learn things like this. Each day, it's always a fight for them, I think, to let us understand how can we deliver our messages. So it's a learning process. We have to invest a lot of work into it, I think, but they are good leaders for us. So thank you for just answering our call to present here. And now it's feel free for questions. I think there will be some. Professor, please.
Well, thank you very much for your contribution. I think I understood your main message, but I'm not sure what one topic you mentioned. So universities have to prepare the young generation for dealing with these challenges, what to communicate, how to communicate. But I heard something about necessary changes in the institutional setting of universities or so. But what do you mean with that? Can this not be done with the existing structures at the university, or do you think there's some kind of innovation necessary in this field? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good question. in the University of Sopron, maybe 2 years ago, began some model changing. And in this process, they changed the name of the institutions. I don't know the old terms, but before it, the terms tell us about the producing of wood and cutting. The first lesson is the cutting, for example. And nowadays, they call the institutes, they call the subjects about the ecosystem services, or you can tell the real name of in English. So I think, and I try to say that it's very important to manage the channels and to teach skills, how you can get an interview or what means the radio and television and how you make a post and so on. But this is the second step. And first, we have to change our mind in university and teach about the ecosystem services, not forest producing, not hunting, the managing of the ecosystem service. This is the forest. So, because if I have good skills to write posts, but I haven't enough knowledge about, for example, the climate change, it's nothing. These posts are empty then. And, or not opponent, but the versenytárs.
Concurrent.
Or concurrent are very well taught and highly educated NGOs who tell a lot of facts about the carbon capturing, about the temperature in between the forest and the urban area and so on. So first we have to focus to the subject, and when we have enough knowledge about this ecosystem and the working of this ecosystem, after that we have to learn how we can communicate about this. Thank you.
So we acknowledge that communication is very important for policy professionals, but we know that it's not adequately covered by the curriculum. So as an expert, what other methods would you suggest that we employ to supplement what the university is offering, and at the end of the day ensure that young professionals or students are equipped with the skills that are needed?
Thank you.
Okay, please, yes, we have
it was I heard.
To summarize your question, what the question goes to?
What other methods can we use to supplement what the university is already providing?
Oké, milyen módszereket tudunk használni az egyetemeken ennek a folyamatnak az elősegítésére, ilyen kommunikációs módszer?
I think the first method is so I am maybe I think freely, and my opinion is the first method to teach first the ecosystem services of the forest. This is the first lesson in the university, and after that came the dendrology, the measuring of trees and so on. So this is the first method. And after that, the környezeti nevelés for environmental education is a good way to teach the forestry students how they can communicate with people who are no knowledge about the forest. And for example, in Sopron there are some education and some cooperation with the forestry schools and the university, and the students can go to teach the forestry schools and get some practice about this topic. For example, I was teaching maybe 6 years in the University of the Autonomy in Budapest about forestry management. And that was a very good school for me, because I learned how I can tell the forestry things for the other people. So I think the subject about not just from the wood producing and the possibilities to practice, for example, in the forestry schools. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I get the gloves, it's very uncomfortable.
So let's move to our next investor, next presenter, Mr. Attila Farkas, assistant professor from Sapientia, Hungarian University of Transylvania, which is seated in Romania, but this area was an ancient Hungarian area. So therefore, he's one of the leaders of a forestry study, BSc study program, which is taught in Hungarian. You have to imagine there are still more than 1 million Hungarians counted in this Romanian, in this part of Romania. So it's an important cooperation between our universities, and we hope to be able to help them in the near future, even to extend this cooperation and to support their teaching there. So the title of his presentation is The Importance of Communication as a Discipline in the Bachelor's Degree Education of Forestry in Romania and its Legal Limitations.
Thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Attila Farkas. The presentation is in collaboration with my colleague Gábor Molnár. As it was presented, is the newest university with forestry courses in Romania. So we are not here to share knowledge. We are here to learn. And I'm happy to be here because I'm the responsible of this forestry study program, and as in this position, I have to do with what to learn and how to learn, because what to teach and in terms of disciplines, the content of the disciplines, and because in the end of the day we want to reach skilled graduated students in technical, social, and economical issues as well. And it's a big challenge, let's say. The content of my presentation, it's a brief presentation of the Romanian higher education system, followed by the bachelor's degree program. I present the list of Romanian universities with forestry in educational offer, and the quality assurance system in Romania, and the importance of certain disciplines in the bachelor's degree education of forestry in Romania, a questionnaire survey which isn't too much scientific. Just try to find out what the respondents think about this topic. And finally, some conclusions. So, the education system in higher education in Romania, so there are 93 accredited higher education institutions, of which 53 are public owned, 34 are private accredited. Our University Sapientia, belongs in this category, and are 6 more private provisionally authorized higher education institutions also in Romania. The higher education institution authorized to operate on a temporary basis becomes part of the national higher education system only after the final accreditation. And who has only provisionally authorization has no right to organize graduation exams. The first cycle in Romania and all over Europe, as we know, we follow also the Bologna system. We have a law that regulates the courses, and the first cycle is the bachelor degree program. The second is the master degree, and the third, the doctoral studies. In engineering, there are between, it is a range between 118 and 214 credits, which is mandatory. And especially in forestry, we have 4 years of program, each with 60 mandatory credits. Okay. And the universities, there are 9 universities with forestry in their educational offer. It's more than 1 in Hungary, and much less than 50, as I understood, in Spain. It's much enough, I don't know. There are 9, and the particularity of our university, it was mentioned, is the Hungarian language. The university with the most or biggest tradition is the Transylvania University of Brasov. The second as importance could be the Stefan cel Mare University in Suceava, and there are 6 more, newest, and we're working. It's okay. The quality assurance, there is a system, there is an agency for quality assurance in higher education named ARACIS. They have the standards of quality assurance, and they have 21 criteria, of which I highlighted only 8, which I consider the most important. These are related to duration of 8 semesters, the duration of a semester of on teaching activity, which is 14 weeks. How many hours, how many teaching hours should be in a week, and the credits I mentioned already, and equivalence in hours of a credit, which is 25 hours. So there are the next category or categorization of the disciplines. There are plenty of disciplines of which we can choose. There are 61 formative categories. This could be a blessing or a challenge because we must take a decision what to think, what to teach, and there is another categorization based on optionality. There are compulsory imposed disciplines and optional, but also compulsory disciplines. New higher education institution cannot make brand new curricula. It can depart of other institutions. We have also some regulations. We have a need of a degree of overlap between other forestry study programs in the country. And this is compared with our between 80 and 90% with educational offer of other forestry universities. We can say that our problems are generally valuable along the country. So this is the questionnaire survey what we make or what we made. We made in the form of Google Forms with multiple choices. We asked all 61 disciplines about the importance of all 61 disciplines and plus 7 which there are in our universities offer. Questions were in the form, in your opinion, how necessary is the teaching of the discipline, whatever. I mentioned there mathematics in the bachelor's degree, training of forestry engineers, and the possible responses were no need to teach. It should be compulsory optional with 3-4 hours a week, or compulsory imposed with a higher number of teaching hours, minimum 5. And the last choice, it was that the discipline is such important that needs a high number of physical hours per week and should be split into at least 2 semesters. And the interpretation of results, we decided that if somebody or if a discipline get more than 50% of positive responses, we consider that firm position, that this discipline includes somewhere. And were divided positions when some kind of necessity were expressed, but did not reach the 50%, and also cumulated where the positive responses were about 75%. Okay, the importance. Third position where about three of fundamental disciplines expressed, and three of fundamental disciplines should be made compulsory optional, and three of fundamental disciplines should be made compulsory imposed. If we take in account also the 300 hours of practice, that means if only the disciplines which are considered important by the simple majority almost reach the minimal hours that are in Arachis standards. Okay. Three of disciplines of the field, three of disciplines of the field should be made compulsory optional. Two of 80 out of 80 of disciplines of field should be made compulsory imposed, and 6 out of 18 disciplines should be made compulsory with a minimum of 5 physical hours per week in two semesters. Okay, and 15 out of 28 are considered that should be made compulsory. 3 out of 28 should be compulsory imposed, and from the complementary disciplines, the foreign language, the English, should be compulsory in the first 4 semesters. And we had 7 disciplines in university's choice, in our university's choice. 2 of them are considered that should be made compulsory optional, and 1 of 7 of our offer is considered that should be made compulsory imposed. And divided positions, also taking in account the 300 physical hours of practice, are far above the number of hours are far above the Arachis standards. If we want to teach everything that in respondents' opinion is somehow important, then we should have 6 years of courses at least. And I don't know if this kind of organization in 4 years courses is enough. I don't know. We don't have graduated students. We don't know if they perform, how do they perform. I know that universities with a longer background, with tradition, also have the master courses. We don't have at the moment. So the communication. The communication, it's in Arachi's standards as a complementary discipline. Here we don't get a firm position. That's it. And that's said because the respondents were professors, graduated forestry engineers, and forestry students, not the general public. And that's the results. We have to work. I don't know. That's it. Conclusions. I think that although the number of participants in our questionnaire survey was small, all of them could be considered as competent in this topic because I said that are related to this field. There is a tendency not to specialize, but rather to teach a wide range of disciplines. We want a forestry engineer that is competent in all the topics related to forests. We want to have a skilled person. The importance of communication, I said that is not neglected, but is almost impossible to include a specific subject on communication in the educational offer, in addition to many important technical disciplines. So we recommend that for as many disciplines as possible, lecturers incorporate lessons that specifically address the communication of discipline to the general public. That's our view. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. So this young faculty is still building up. The first only in the next year. So they are trying to find their way, and we did already have our reform 2 years ago, but they are still building up their educational program. We hope that we can contribute to them, and okay, feel free now for questions. That's all.
Thank you for your communication. What do you think about the present situation of the forestry studies in general? Because I think that the situation in Romania is similar to Spain. There are a lot of faculty of forestry, no? Nine?
Yes.
In Spain, 15. It's terrible. And I don't know the situation of the number of the students in Romania, but in Spain, also the number is very complicated. Because, for example, this year, this course, in the University of Santiago, there are only 20 new students. In my university, I'm not sure if the situation in Romania is similar.
Yes, between 20 and in the faculties with longer history, around 100. Russia University, and 100 students. annually.
About the duration of the studies, now with the Bologna process is for degree 4 years.
For 4 years.
But is it possible that let me few do, this is only 3 years? What do you think about this question?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we should question the higher education institutions with longer history, but I think now that if we want to produce skilled engineers, not the 4 years. It is not enough. The 4-year study. I don't know what we can do in 3 years. I don't know. But there are tendencies when we hear that not the quantity matters, the quality. You mentioned the digitalization of learning, of teaching. I don't know if is there a solution in digitalization? I don't know.
No, my question is very easy. When I studied in Spain, the duration of the study in Spain for forestry engineering was 6 years. Normally, but 6 years is very complicated. Normally it's 7, 8 years. In my case, for example, no 6 years, okay? And now it's only 4 years, and this is possible 3 years.
Before Bologna was 5.
Yes.
Here in Sopron.
No, it's only a reflection.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay.
And it's important to repeat, you have seen there are 9 institutions where students can study forestry. But this is an institution where they can do it in Hungarian. And I spoke about 1 million people, a huge minority of Hungarians. I can imagine if you would have 1 million Germans here who are still speaking their own language at home and in offices and overall, they would choose a German forestry educational center. So that's an important role of this one between these among these 9.
And one more data, 500,000 hectares in the property of these persons, these Hungarian persons.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you also from my side. You presented results of survey, and I was not absolutely sure about the addresses and the number of this survey, because when I saw it right, you had 30 respondents.
Yes. That's why.
Survey from 3 groups, from students, employers, and a flood group. Did I understand it correctly?
Yes, unfortunately, that's because I mentioned that it's not scientific. Scientifically, it's not based.
Okay, because normally you should separate such surveys, because students and employers have totally different conceptions about the necessity of different topics in forestry education. So this is not so representative. Maybe you should work on the design, but as a first impression about the breadth of forest education, it was very interesting to see how many topics were seen as interesting for this group of respondents, what should be integrated into education. I think nobody at our university, for example, would think about conservation of trophies or something like that. So very interesting. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I have the feeling it was a bit too much to have a 3 hours block all together. But let me introduce you the last speaker before lunch. And in the afternoon, we will have a coffee break too. So thank you for your patience. Juliette Eschenk-Auvour from the European Forest Institute in Bonn, Germany. I have found some data about her. She works in the Green Jobs project by the European Forest Institute, International Forestry Students Association, and the International Union of Forest Research Organizations, UFRO, as a junior researcher and deputy coordinator of the joint UFRO-IFSHA task force on forest education. She has, as a background, an MSc in tropical and international forestry from Georg August Universität Göttingen, and a BSc in agroforestry and rural development from Moi University, Kenya. Please come to the point.
Thank you for the nice introduction, but unfortunately that's an old bio. Now I'm with Forest Europe, but still from the EFI side. But either way, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here. I am actually the coordinator of the third work stream in the Forest Europe program, which is forest education and green jobs. So it's related to what I was doing in the previous project. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. I was last in the 2019 meeting that took place in Tarrant. So I feel good to see that SILVA network is still continuing. The passion is there, the motivation is there, and keep up the great job that you're doing. So I would like to pass regards from the liaison unit in Bonn. So the head of the unit, Mr. Thomas Hausmann, and the entire team, they sent their warm regards to all of you. I actually liked yesterday's discussions because they focused on youth engagement, as well as emphasizing the need for raising awareness from an early age. So not only university level, but as early as 2 years. So that was actually very inspiring. So at Forest Europe, we've been trying our best to raise awareness about our activities among the young people. And we've been trying to communicate who we are and what we're doing and why it is important. And that's what I will continue with today. So I will just provide some background information about who we are for those who don't know, but I think most of you know who we are. And I will also touch on a few activities of the work stream that we've been doing to communicate our work. And I would also like to thank SILVA Network for being an observer organization of the Forest Europe. So we are happy with the collaboration and we are looking forward to doing more with you. So in case you're wondering who Forest Europe is, so we are formally known as the Ministerial Conference on the Protection of Forests in Europe. So it was established in the 90s, and Forest Europe is a very high-level political process. Our work is about developing common strategies on how we can protect forests and also sustainably manage them in the pan-European area. So we work with the governments in the area and try to provide advice on how they can carry out sustainable forest management, as well as how to protect their forests. So we have a very interesting structure. So maybe some of you have already seen that diagram. So we have signatories and we also have observer organizations. So as at now, we have 45 European states plus the European Commission. So that becomes 46 signatories. And we also have observers, which comprises of 14 countries and 45 organizations. So these countries that are in the observer group are mostly countries outside the pan-European area. So for example, we have the US, we have Canada, we have Brazil, and many other countries. And in the 45 organizations, that's where we have the SILVA network. So they are part of the 45. And our secretariat, like I mentioned, is in Bonn, in Germany, and that's where I'm coming from now. And we also have the team from the European Forest Institute that's also supporting the activities of Forest Europe, and mostly the science part. So the research part is carried out by the European Forest Institute. We have the General Coordinating Committee, and this committee is actually made up of previous presidents. So the chairmanship of Forest Europe rotates across countries after 4 to 5 years. So the General Coordinating Committee is made up of the previous chair, the current chair, and the next 2 chairs, incoming chairs. Is part of our structure. We have different ways in which we do the negotiation activities and also how decisions are made. So maybe I need to clarify that decision is usually made by the ministers. So at Forest Europe, we just provide support and guidance to the best of our ability. So one of the meetings where the decisions are usually made is the ministerial conference. And the ministerial conference, I will talk about it in the other slides. So let me just say that the next ministerial conference will be in 2024. And then we also have the expert level meeting. So this meeting is usually held annually. And this year, the meeting will be held in Dresden, Germany, because the chairmanship is with Germany. So if you've not registered for the meeting, please register, and we're looking forward to seeing you there. The meeting will be in person, so it won't be hybrid. And we also have other ways in which we conduct the strategic debates. And so we have the roundtable meetings, working groups, and advisory groups. But these ones usually happen when there is a specific issue across countries that needs to be sorted out. So back to the ministerial conferences. Since the establishment of Forest Europe, we've had 8 ministerial conferences. So the one that will be taking place in 2024 in Bonn, Germany, will be the 9th ministerial conference. And these conferences usually happen at the end of the chairmanship of each country. So sometimes the chairmanship is for 4 years, sometimes it's for 5 years, but you end your chairmanship by having this ministerial conference. And this is where decisions of highest political and social relevance are usually made, because the ministers will be there. So they will be signing declarations, they will be signing resolutions on different topics. Like for this upcoming ministerial conference, we are planning to draft 3 ministerial documents. So that will be a declaration on sustainable forest management. We will have a resolution on green jobs and forest education, where we are hoping to involve the youth. And then we will also have a resolution on forest risk mechanism. So our work is divided into work streams so that it's easier to focus and to assign roles. And in the current chairmanship, we have 3 work streams. So the sustainable forest management, which has always been continuous since the previous chairmanship. And then for the German chairmanship, we have the Pan-European Forest Risk Knowledge Mechanism, which is known as FORISK in short. So this is where we're looking at disturbances, fires, and other threats to forests. And then we have the green jobs and forest education work stream. So I really commend the German government for investing time and allowing this work stream to actually be established, because this is where we are able to carry out activities targeted at young people. You know, our target is usually policymakers, but through this work stream, we've been able to work with youth organizations, we've been able to do a lot of capacity building, so this is really appreciated. And then there are some topics that don't quite fit well into the 3 work streams. So we have an overarching work stream that focuses on topics that really cannot be placed in one particular work stream, or also topics that are emerging. And this program is called the Rapid Response Mechanism, and also goes hand in hand with the communication part. So I will, after now giving you background information, I hope that was helpful. Then I will talk about the activities that we've been carrying out to help raise awareness about our work among the young generation, because we know our work is very important and it's acknowledged everywhere that it's very important. But since this is a very high level political process, so the youth are always out of touch. They don't know what is really happening here. And this is what we've been trying to do at Forest Europe. And I will share some examples with you. So in October last year, we had a workshop targeted at journalists, and the topic of focus was seasonal migration in the forest sector. So this is a very important topic to us, but we wanted to know, beyond the sector, does anyone know about this topic? Are they interested in it? What can they do about it? So we brought together journalists from different EU countries, and we wanted to first of all identify the challenges that seasonal migrant workers are facing in Europe and beyond, if it's possible. And then we also wanted to see if this topic is well communicated in the media, if it's really captured. And the workshop was organized, of course, by Forest Europe, but we had experts from the Tunen Institute sharing their insights, as well as the International Labour Organization and AYUFRO. So Mika Ricola was the expert from AYUFRO, and it was nice to see that they are currently doing something about this topic. So maybe in summary, the topic was really not discussed in the media in Europe as such, which was a surprise to us, because we really know that it's an important topic in the sector. So we really need to amplify the stories that we have in the sector. And I agree with the previous presenter today that we really need to share our stories as a sector. We are doing a lot of important work, but we keep it to ourselves. We don't tell the world what we are doing. And this is one of the ways that we can do it. And then also in this particular work stream, we work with a lot of experts. So if you remember my previous slides, I talked about the expert group. So for this particular work stream, we have 3 expert subgroups. So we have a subgroup on publication and communication and public relations. And then we have a work stream, a subgroup on transition and a subgroup on analysis. So the subgroup on communication and public relations and publications went ahead to try to find a common definition that we can work with for green forest jobs. So you can visit our website and then you will be able to find the definition there. And then we also did a study where we wanted to look at the state of green jobs in the pan-European area. So this study was carried out by the Tunen Institute in Hamburg, and this report that they produced, as well as the policy brief that they produced, has a lot of important information about employment in the sector, gender issues, young people, employment, education as well. So if you've not read the report, I would really encourage you to visit our website and download it. It's there for free. And then we also have a policy brief. So remember, our target is the policymakers. So we have to synthesize the messages that we produce in the report to a format that really suits the policymakers. And that's why we have this policy brief with the key messages from the report, as well as the recommendations on what can be done to increase green jobs in the pan-European region, as well as the trends and opportunities that are available that can be exploited. And about youth involvement in our activities. So I said this is a very important component of our work, and we work closely with the International Forestry Students Association. So IFSA is an observer organization in the Forest Europe process. So nice to see colleagues from TU Dresden. So I know you're members of IFSA, hopefully. And from the IFSA side, they usually have a position where they have a liaison officer to Forest Europe. So this is how we're collaborating. So the liaison officer works as the intermediary between IFSA and Forest Europe. So the communication is usually through this particular person. And we've been doing a lot of things with them. For example, webinars and workshops that are targeted at students. So the students help us to identify the topics that they think are important but are missing in the curriculum. And for us, we try to find experts who can provide knowledge on these particular topics. And we've also been involving the youth in our high-level discussions. And one of them was the high-level policy dialogue that took place last year in August. And we had one of the key speakers being a young student from IFSA. And this particular student is the one that was instrumental in the development of the Youth Call for Action. I don't know if you've come across the Youth Call for Action, but it was launched at the World Forestry Congress in Korea last year, and FAO was the one supporting it. So Mr. Peter Choka mentioned it yesterday. And so this particular student came to the meeting to now bring ideas or a perspective of the young people. So this is how we try to include the youth in our activities, no matter how high level it is. And then also from our side, from the webinars and workshops that we are always conducting, we try to provide content for the Tree Learning platform. So IFSA has a Tree Learning platform where they have courses, they have short videos to educate their members about different forestry topics. So we try to provide them with this kind of content. And also there's room for any young person who's interested, who's in IFSA and is interested in being part of the subgroups that I mentioned. So you can join the subgroup as an expert and always be providing some insights about what the youth want, about different topics that are being discussed in the subgroups. So we continue still with youth involvement, and one of the ways that now we are really planning to do differently, which has not happened before in any of the 8 former ministerial conferences that we've had, is involving the youth in the drafting of the resolution on green jobs and forest education, as well as organizing a youth panel where we can have an intergenerational dialogue between policymakers and youth and see if we can try to bring together the two groups together under one roof and come up with solutions on how we can address the gaps that are there in forest education as well as employment. So this will be first of a kind where the youth are involved, and the exact expected contribution is still under discussion. So these are just some preliminary ideas. They've not been confirmed yet. So they might change along the way, but this is the plan that we have in mind at the moment. So more examples of collaborative activities that we've had. So on 1st to 3rd of December last year, we were the co-organizers of the Youth Forest Policy Days. I don't know, is there anyone in this room who attended the Youth Forest Policy Days? Okay, yeah, then maybe we need to communicate more. Yeah, so this was also a first of a kind event that was organized by the youth for the youth. So Forest Europe was there providing advice and support needed, but the idea came from IFSA. And we also received support from the GLF and IUFRO, and we had 3 different events. So on the first day, we had a workshop where one of the topics that was being discussed was communication. So how can forestry students learn to communicate? So what are the do's and don'ts? What are the key messages that they need to communicate? And after the workshop, the students had an opportunity to practice what what they've learned by attending the other sessions and trying to summarize the key messages. So it was a nice connection. And then we also had a conference on forest policies. So here we had different experts in the field of forest policy sharing their insights with students about so many topics. We had sustainable finance, we had deforestation, sustainable forest management, and many other topics. And on the last day of this particular event, we had a climate negotiation simulation where students were able to now have a feel of how the negotiation process at the UNFCCC COP usually happens. So here they had a chance to get first-hand experience, like how do the negotiations take place, what are the goals of the negotiations, etc., etc. And some numbers about the session. So we had 18 sessions in total and more than 40 speakers. We had over 300 participants from different parts of the world and 65 countries to be specific. So those are the numbers, but you can visit our website for more information, or you can read the final report that we prepared. So you will find more information about the sessions, the numbers, and recommendations that we have. And then also another activity that I would like to share with you is the International Day of Forests webinar series. So this was also organized together with Forest Europe and IFSA, and we had 4 webinar episodes in the run-up to the International Day of Forests and after. So the main idea behind this initiative was to just try to capitalize on the attention and the momentum that is usually around the IDF. So we also wanted to jump on board and try to keep the conversations going. So you can visit our website for more information about this. We have the videos of the sessions as well, so you can listen in on the discussions and many other things. So let me not dwell on it. And okay, so first, let me say here first. So why did I also focus on marking international days related to forests? So I said there's usually a lot of momentum towards these days, and maybe as a forest sector, this is something that we can capitalize on or something that we need to think about. So maybe if we have some interesting things that we need to communicate, maybe we should actually, leverage on these days. So try to link the two together and then try to create a lot of awareness around what you're doing. So on 24th of January this year, we had students from the Technical University of Dresden. So they came from the master program Tropical Forestry. So they came to visit Forest Europe to learn about our work and also the importance of our work and how it links to the global processes. So this was also interesting for us because our goal has been to raise awareness among young people about what we are doing. And then also for the International Women's Day, which is usually on the 8th of March every year. So from the report that I mentioned about the state of green jobs in the pan-European area, we tried to take some key messages from there and just share it and try to show how the sector is faring on in terms of gender balance. And we have some nice, interesting messages there. But the key message is that the sector really needs to do more to ensure that women and young people are included. And lastly, so because we're talking about forest education today, and we're talking about raising awareness from a very young age. So there's a conference that's coming up on forest education, and it will be in September 20th and up to 22nd, and it will be in Bonn, Germany. So I would really encourage all of you to attend the conference if you can. We are looking for participants from all over the globe. So it's not limited to Germany only, it's not limited to Europe only. So from wherever you're coming from, you're welcome to the conference. Forest Europe will be a co-organizer. for this conference, together with the Schutzgemeinschaft Deutsche Welt. So they've been involved in previous projects on education for young people, among many other interesting things that they are doing. So the topic will be about forest-related education for sustainable development, so how we can foster partnerships for transformation. I think this would be an interesting opportunity for SILVA Network to meet with other educators and, exchange ideas, exchange practices. So for now, we still don't have much information about it, but once we have it, you will find it on our website, or you can actually reach out to us at the liaison unit Bonn at foresteurope.org in case you have any questions, or in case you need any kind of support from us, or you need any information, or you need any of the reports that I've been talking about. And there are also so many other reports in our website. So if you have any need, just write to us. And you can also follow us on social media, at least unlike the previous conversations that we've had that we are not on social media, etc. So Forest Europe is, or even on Instagram. So you can follow us, on Twitter as well, and LinkedIn and Facebook. So we are looking forward to interacting with you and continuing with the discussions, and of course, keeping the momentum on forest education going. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. And you have the opportunity to ask questions.
First of all, I really liked your presentation. I really love the European Union trying to involve younger people and forest students. I want to ask you, is there a way to engage a wider range of forest students? Because they're concentrated only on the IFSA, which is good, of course, but it's only a small part of forest students.
Okay, so thank you so much for your question. And actually, it's nice to see that young people are interested in our work. So, but the idea is the initiative, now that you have the information that Forest Europe is open to working with young people, the initiative should come from you. For us at the liaison unit office, we might not be aware of all the youth organizations that are there. So it's up to you now that you come to us with a proposal that we want to engage with you. We think that these are the synergies that we have between the two organizations, and we can explore now the possibilities of working together. We already started doing that with the R&V, the Pro-SILVA Youth Wing. So we're always looking forward to new collaborations, and many others have been approaching us, but we are still in the initial stages of discussions. So if you feel like we can work together, of course, reach out and we will be happy to do that. And now that we are actually looking for youth organizations to work with for the resolution on green jobs and forest education, as well as the youth session for the ministerial conference. So we would really be happy to work with you, and we are open to working with youth from all over the pan-European region.
I mean, it's always a challenge that students come and go in quite a short time. BSc program lasts only for 3 years, 4 years. Here we have an undivided joint BSc, MSc, which takes 5 years, maybe 6, if they take a lot of time for other activities. For example, for IFSA, then it might take a bit longer, but still, after 6 years, the most active participants leave, and you have to find the new ones which get again involved. And what we have seen, there are lots of opportunities. So these organizations can help, but we still do need the active cooperation from the students. That's quite a challenge. It's tough to always find the new active participants. Okay, if there are no more questions now, I can understand we had quite a long session. Sorry for that. Maybe next time we have to make an interception. Now we have the pause. We will continue at 1:30, and again we can walk together to grab something to eat in our Mensa. Okay, thank you very much.